I mean, I just say, though, I would vote for a corned beef sandwich over Donald Trump. I'm a vegan. So I don't say that lightly, but at least a corned beef sandwich would have some intelligence and not be a dictator on day one.
Will Democrats do to stop social media manipulation by the Russians and Republicans in the next election?
Well, we're doing a lot already. We've been continuing to investigate just how the Russians manipulated social media, what other countries are now starting to do.
Something extremely wild just happened. Bill Maher just pulled a major switch. Instead of going after Trump, he turns his attention to Adam Schiff with sharp sarcasm and smooth humor. The left is confused, the right is watching again, and everyone is asking, did Maher just flip the script? Every line lands like a joke mixed with a courtroom moment. If you like surprises, truth, and pure political absurdity, keep watching. This gets wilder faster than anything you saw last election season. Guaranteed, my friend. Seriously.
Here are the questions from the people. Senator Schiff, given the ongoing political tensions and Trump's actions toward his critics, do you think President Biden's preemptive pardons turned out to be more important than initially expected? Let's first tell people what that means, preemptive pardons. That was pretty unprecedented, right? Before he left office, Joe Biden pardoned you and a number of people who he thought Trump would go after.
No, I take the opposite view. I don't think he should have given the pardons at all.
If you're enjoying this, please subscribe to the channel. It helps more than you might think. Bill Maher leans toward the microphone, not with his usual smirk, but with a tired kind of humor that feels like he's been holding this in for years and can finally say it out loud, without a producer in his ear reminding him about advertisers or public image.
Said word for word that he fired Comey because the Russia thing, in his opinion, isn't real. That seems like obstruction of justice. He also was asked, did you ask Comey for his loyalty? And he said, no, I didn't, but that's a great idea. Which also is illegal, correct?
It is staggering. Plainly what he did, if you can believe him, was at a minimum unethical, improper, etc. Whether it's illegal also depends on whether you think he's telling the truth. Ironically, the most incriminating things are if you believe him, but of course when it comes to Russia, you really can't believe what this president did.
As he starts talking about Adam Schiff, he doesn't describe him as just a politician, but more like a real-life example of what can happen when ambition takes over integrity and gets rewarded with applause from cable news.
Maybe you will be that politician who will say the Constitution, they were great back then, but they were not Nostradamus. They couldn't see a lot of shit that was going to happen. Where were you on that issue of the Constitution?
Well, I certainly agree with Ruth Bader Ginsburg in terms of if we were starting over, we would obviously make sure that everyone could vote. We wouldn't discriminate against women, people of color.
He says Schiff didn't just climb the ladder in Washington. He acted like he was writing the script for it, as if dramatic elevator music was playing in his head every time a camera turned his way. Because to Schiff, politics didn't seem to be about serving the country. It felt more like performing in a political one-man drama where he always plays the righteous hero, even when the facts don't quite line up.
Why should they hate Republicans? This is treason. This is colluding with the enemy. I mean, even what you just said about Donald Trump inviting them to hack. If the shoe was on the other foot, they would not hesitate to use that. If they knew that the investigation was going on, as Obama knew, he didn't say anything because he didn't want it to look bad.
Well, and when he did say something, when the president did that press conference, I think he really did put his finger on.
Maher takes his time, explaining that Schiff's biggest talent isn't legislating, persuading, or even debating, but performing outrage with such convincing drama that half the country started seeing him as a moral crusader instead of a career politician who learned early on that nothing brings more airtime than warning that Donald Trump is hiding around every corner. Maher says Schiff didn't just oppose Trump. He seemed fixated on him in a way that felt less like public duty and more like something personal. The kind of focus that makes you wonder if Schiff quietly missed Trump once he left office. Because without him, Schiff suddenly had to talk about less exciting topics like healthcare or climate policy, instead of playing detective on national television. Maher lets out a dry laugh as he talks about the impeachment saga, not as a history lesson, but as a slow and sharp look at Schiff's mindset. describing how Schiff acted less like a careful investigator and more like someone who had already decided the ending of a courtroom story before the trial even started.
We would not have to amend and correct for all the mistakes of the original. But Bill, let me ask you this. Who would you trust to draft the new Constitution? Mike Lee?
No.
Mitch McConnell? Any of those jokers? I certainly wouldn't. And this is the problem. I don't have any confidence, frankly, that we could improve upon the work product of the framers with the crowd we have today. So I like it in theory.
He quickly remembers Schiff standing at the podium with a serious face and carefully timed pauses, almost like he was delivering something sacred instead of political speculation, telling the public again and again that he had seen evidence so damaging it would bring Trump down, while keeping most of it hidden behind claims of secrecy. Maher pokes fun at this, saying that if Schiff really had the smoking gun he talked about, he would have been showing it off like a magician waiting for applause. Instead, the process dragged on like a Netflix series stretched to 10 episodes when the story could have been told in 2. Maher argues that what made the moment revealing wasn't simply that Schiff disliked Trump, but that he seemed willing to push reality to fit the narrative. Maher says that kind of approach is unhealthy for democracy because it teaches people that political power can be used like a weapon instead of a responsibility. And Schiff, he suggests, didn't seem to mind, as long as the cameras stayed on and the headlines kept calling him a fearless truth-teller.
Whatever the hell was going on there. They probably already own him. What am I talking about? Does it really matter that
in the category of you can't make this up, which is the category we live in now?
Right.
You have photographs of Kislyak and Lavrov with the president, not because our own press is allowed in, but because the Russians take the pictures. And
so
they're
why
published
can't
in
the
the Russian media.
Democrats make this sale? You're either with us or with the Russians. Remember Bush? You're either with us or with the Chinese.
Then Maher shifts to the Hunter Biden laptop story, and his tone becomes noticeably sharper. He says that if Schiff's impeachment push showed his ambition, the laptop controversy revealed his hypocrisy in clear view. Maher recalls how Schiff quickly labeled the story as Russian disinformation without much investigation, not out of caution, but because admitting it might be real would have complicated the Democratic narrative right before an election. Maher points out that Schiff didn't just sound doubtful, he spoke with total certainty, as if he had direct knowledge, urging social media companies and journalists to treat the story as a dangerous falsehood instead of a controversial but possibly legitimate report. Maher compares this to how Schiff reacted whenever Trump was involved, suddenly shifting from someone who dismissed uncomfortable information to someone willing to believe anonymous sources. Maher also notes that when the laptop was later verified, Schiff didn't really apologize but simply moved forward as if the earlier claims never happened. To Maher, that shows how accountability often applies only to political opponents and not to the person making the accusations, what he describes as modern political hypocrisy, wrapped in polished speeches and moral grandstanding.
I must say, you deserve that standing O for your not okay speech.
Thank you
When
very
you
much.
made your, that
Thank you.
was, and you delivered it great. I gotta ask, maybe it's impolite, was that an ad lib, that whole speech, or did you have that ready to go?
Well, I knew the points I wanted to make, but I didn't write it out because
Really?
I wasn't sure what they had in mind. But look, this has been reaffirmed now by Giuliani and the rest of the crowd.
At this point, Maher steps back from the individual scandals and casts Schiff as a symbol of what's gone wrong in modern American politics. He describes a system where loyalty to party has replaced loyalty to principle, and where politicians care more about winning the next news cycle than actually improving the lives of ordinary people. Maher argues that Schiff is part of a group of leaders who would rather spend years fighting Trump than even half that time tackling serious issues like healthcare, climate change, or economic inequality because outrage is easier than governing, and performative righteousness feels safer than making tough policy choices. Maher delivers this not as a calm lecture, but as a sharp critique of how politics has become a never-ending culture war, fueled by figures like Schiff who thrive on division while pretending to be peacemakers. He suggests that Schiff's legacy won't be about Trump, but about forgetting the country he was meant to serve. In that sense, Maher's roast is more than an attack. It's a warning. If politics keeps going this way, the real losers won't be Schiff or Trump, but the millions of Americans stuck watching the spectacle while their real problems go unresolved.
Open letter today? I read it. Interesting stuff. And it's funny because I was going to ask you about this because I assume you do talk to Republicans after hours. Now, I know when Obama was president, they complained he didn't socialize enough with them. Do you socialize with them? Do you talk over drinks privately?
We do socialize, and certainly there are a lot of private conversations where they will express their deep fears, misgivings about this president, about his lack of ethics, about his basic...
Just when it seemed like the smoke had cleared, Maher widened his focus, putting the spotlight not just on Schiff, but on the whole system that shaped him. He explains that Schiff didn't rise on his own. He was nurtured by a political media culture that rewards outrage, ambiguity, and dramatic certainty far more than careful thinking or humility. Maher points out that for years, Schiff and cable news existed in a perfect feedback loop. Schiff would make a bold accusation, networks would replay it endlessly, and Schiff learned quickly that in modern Washington, power doesn't come from solving problems, it comes from keeping your opponents constantly cast as villains while presenting yourself as the only one brave enough to confront them, turning his career into a non-stop cycle of alarm bells.
But, I mean, the Mueller report is, at the end of the day, you know, that firecracker that, you know, goes up and then the one that fizzles. You know, oh, look, nothing. Do you think you guys relied too much on that?
Look, I was always of the opinion, number one, that the Office of Legal Counsel opinion that you can't indict a sitting president was wrong.
Oh, good.
That, in fact, you can indict a sitting president. I think there are prudential reasons not to try someone who's the president.
Press conferences and ominous warnings that rarely led to anything real. Maher points out that this is why Schiff often sounded less like a lawmaker and more like a TV host narrating the next episode of a never-ending crisis. Because his real audience wasn't the voters in his district, but the producers, commentators, and activists who rewarded him whenever he performed the right kind of moral panic on cue. Maher then shifts to how Schiff's style of politics ended up hurting the left more than helping it, arguing that by obsessing over Trump and ignoring almost everything else, Schiff helped turn Democrats into a party seen as focused on investigations rather than improving people's everyday lives. While Schiff was busy crafting dramatic speeches about Trump, it wasn't out of admiration, but because politicians like him had turned legitimate criticism into a spectacle, making real accountability far harder to achieve.
Yes, I do.
You do?
I do. And I go on Fox from time
Do you
to
go,
time.
Sean Hannity invites you on?
Oh, he invites me a lot.
You don't go?
I used to go.
You should go.
I used to go.
That's who needs to hear your message.
You know,
I thought you weren't invited.
No, I am invited. I am invited.
Please go. No, seriously.
You liked me.
I do. But I like America too. You got to get in the bubble, man.
Well,
This bubble's already sewn up.
He points out that when every minor controversy is treated like a national emergency, real wrongdoing gets lost in the noise. Maher jokes bitterly that if Schiff had spent half as much energy on bipartisan legislation as he did preparing his next televised attack on Trump, he might actually have something positive to show for his years in office. Instead, his legacy became a string of viral clips and dramatic hearings that entertained viewers but left the country largely unchanged. Maher also takes time to challenge the idea of Schiff as a fearless truth-teller, showing how selectively courageous he has been. Schiff was quick to confront Republicans but hesitant to call out powerful figures in his own party, even when they made questionable choices, suggesting that true integrity would mean holding allies to the same standard as opponents. Yet time and again, Schiff chose loyalty over consistency, building narratives instead of following facts. Maher emphasizes that this is why Schiff is so symbolically significant. Taking down Schiff's image isn't just a critique of one man. It's a critique of an entire style of leadership that now dominates Washington.
welcomed it, embraced it, built it into their plan, made full use of it, lied about it, covered it up, and then obstructed the investigation into it. And if we had any doubt before about this president's fitness for office, there is no doubt remaining. He is unfit for the presidency.
Well, but this was our big gun. Now it just looks like you're stalking him.
As he moves toward his conclusion, Maher circles back to Trump, but in a more measured way, admitting that Trump is far from perfect, while pointing out that the way figures like Schiff treated him actually boosted his profile instead of weakening it. Constant, over-the-top attacks made Trump seem more powerful, more persecuted, and more central to American life than he truly needed to be. Maher notes that Schiff's approach unintentionally turned Trump into a kind of martyr for his supporters, while deepening divisions that might have softened over time. He suggests that if Schiff had spent less time on dramatic takedowns and more on building a positive vision for the country, Trump's influence might have faded naturally. Instead, Schiff kept fueling the spectacle that sustained him, showing that until Americans demand a different kind of leadership, they'll remain stuck in a loop of theatrical conflict with figures like Adam Schiff at the center. Maher ends on a reflective note, saying roasting Schiff is easy, but reforming the system that rewards him is the much harder challenge the country can no longer afford to ignore.